really.
Which is
Elephant Geno. I mean, you get yourself a new quarterback. So many good things, throwing people open. He does a lot of really good stuff. How would you evaluate him?
Yeah, obviously having a chance to work with him in Seattle, I've got a familiarity with him. I think he's extremely competitive and intelligent. He's accurate. Got a lot of intangibles that you like about him, like a hard worker, great practice player. I can't say enough good things about him in terms of, to me, the intangibles that he possesses. But on top of that, great story, really, when you look at what he went through in his career and the years he had in Seattle. Very few players get that second opportunity, and he made the most of it. So in my year with him, I couldn't have asked for a better student than Geno was. He's everything you'd look for as a coach. And again, he gives us a top-tier quarterback right now at this time of the junction in his career.
And talking to players up there, I told you who that played with him, they talked about here's the star quarterback. He's helping all the guys trying to make the practice squad. He's helping defensive guys. Can you talk about Geno Smith away from the football, how big of an impact he has off the field?
Yeah, again, I believe that it was a humbling experience for him in New York. And now he's had a chance to kind of step back a little bit. He was able to step back in a backup role and different organizations behind different quarterbacks. He'll speak highly and glowingly of Phillip Rivers and what Phillip Rivers meant to him, and Russell Wilson when he went to Seattle. So he's had two premier quarterbacks in the league that mentored him, later on in his career, and I think that helped him tremendously, and he'd be the first guy to say that and to give credit to those two guys. And when he was in that backup role, not only was he, he's learning how to prepare in case he got that second opportunity, but I think he embraced the cities that he was living in and the franchise that he was working for, and just to be the best version of Geno Smith, and really. He took a lot of pride in understanding what his role was. And he knew his role was to be a backup and try and help these guys become the best starters they can be, yet at the same time prepping himself in case he got the opportunity to start again.
How would you describe, Greg, that relationship that Geno's had with Pete? And then how important is that it translates onto the field for success?
Super special. I think that the whole, between both of them, I think there's a tremendous amount of trust between the two of them. And I think in any relationship in life, if you don't have trust, you don't have anything. And so I know that certainly Geno trusts Pete, and Pete trusts Geno, and that's a big part of playing a position when you're the starting quarterback. And again, Pete gave him that opportunity. I think when they made the decision in Seattle to make Geno the starter and part ways with Russ, that showed Geno a lot. Wow, this guy's got a lot of trust in me to move on from someone like Russ, and make me the starter. So, and I feel like, Pete, it was validated when he made Geno the starter, and Geno came in and played extremely well for him those years. So, happy for both of them. I know they've got a great, strong relationship, but again, it all started with trust.
What is it about this organization that keeps sucking you back in?
Yeah. It is, to me, it's the most special organization in all pro sports, not just football, but the Raiders, and what Al Davis meant, and now, Mark has done in bringing the team here to Las Vegas. But it's always been one of the most storied franchises in NFL history. It will be, forever for me. I think oftentimes we'll bring up stories on players that have passed that goes to the post, and a lot of the great plays that have happened in Raider history, and a lot of these players don't know that. And so I guess I've found myself now as a historian trying to teach these players it's not Kenny Stabler, it's Kenny Stabler, so
Ouch.
Let's try and get some of those things right, and we're looking at it. But a lot of the great memories that a lot of us, I guess, older people have of the NFL football really start with the Raiders and Al Davis.
Aiden has got to play a lot in 2 years, but with so many different voices in his head. I have said, and if I'm wrong, I want you to tell me you disagree, but having Geno here is actually a blessing for him because Geno's been through this. Now he gets to learn from somebody, and we live in a society that throws people away so fast. I think this is going to be a blessing for Aiden in disguise. Am I overestimating that, Greg?
No, I don't any question. And I really we talked earlier about understanding your role. And for Aiden O'Connell to have played as much as he has, knowing that any of us that have been a coaching professional, Aiden didn't get a lot of reps.
Right.
Now, he was the backup, and that's what he was. And all of a sudden for him to step in and play a significant amount of steps says a lot, and played pretty well, really, Aiden O'Connell. So to me, here's a guy that really got no reps in training camp and OTAs and had to come in and step in the middle of a season in a difficult season and play, and expectations, don't change for that position. They expect you to play well. They don't care about where you were drafted or how many reps you got. You got to come in and play well as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So now his role, understandably, has changed. He's been great in the room with Geno. I know Geno appreciates him. He's a real student of the game. Again, another intelligent player. Picks up concepts quickly, works his rear end off in practice, so brings a lot to the table in terms of his tangibles. But I also know that the intelligent mindset part of his game, I think, is going to help Geno, and the two of them together, I think, is great for the quarterback room.
Going back to being here again, what was the first day? What was the first day walking back in here like for you?
It feels great. Again, I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, I did not want to leave. So to get the opportunity, I tell my kids, if there's one thing you should learn about this and a lesson in life is don't burn bridges when you leave somewhere and you're forced to leave somewhere. So certainly it didn't end the way I wanted it to after the last time I was here in the playoff loss. But we were proud of a lot of things that we'd accomplished that season, and it hurt to leave. So I'm just really, really thankful for the opportunity to be back.
Greg, somebody that's coached with Pete before, something that stands out about him seems to be his ability to relate with not just players but also coaches. Just his human, connectivity skills. And he's able to do that even when there's a big age gap. With a rookie and he's in his 70s. What goes into that as a coach, being able to connect with people in that way?
I think he's just so up to date with what's going on in the world, to be honest with you. He can talk to you about a number of different subjects, whether it be music or entertainment or sports or politics. He stays on top of everything. It's like as if and I'm sure he is a very well-read man. He can, again, carry on a conversation with a 10-year-old or a 95-year-old, and he can relate to rich, poor, white, black, young, old. He does it all, but I think you have to be in tune with what's going on in society, really. If you want to have that kind of impact on people, and he's able to do that. He's incredible at it.
Is there a moment working with him that kind of sums up his coaching style?
Me from afar, I've known about him from afar, and we had a lot of common friends, but I'd never had an opportunity to work with him. And I think sometimes you hear people explain or try to define someone and say, well, he is who he is. He's not. There's nothing phony about him. When you see on television, that's who he is. And then when you get a chance to finally be with that person and realize, oh, that is who he is. He's extremely motivated. He's extremely positive. His message is always positive. That doesn't mean he's not competitive or hard, but it's going to be a positive message in the end to try to get you to be the best of your ability. So there really wasn't a defining moment because I had known so much about him and had read. I'm a big reader on coaching books, and I'd read a lot of things that he had written and things that he had said. So there wasn't anything that was a defining moment. I was just, again, I felt fortunate to have a chance to work with him in Seattle, and then certainly get another opportunity here in Las Vegas.
Can you walk me through what the call was like to come back to this team and your reaction to it?
Again, I said to these guys, it was difficult for me to have left, 3 seasons ago. So I was ecstatic when Pete had given me a call in the off season and told me that he was interested in getting back into it and had maybe a possible opportunities at a couple franchises, and one of them he mentioned was Las Vegas, and so excited, I guess, would be an understatement. I enjoyed my time here, certainly. Love the city, love the franchise, love the Raiders, but a chance to come back to Las Vegas and be in this division, which I think is the best division in pro football, and have a chance to go try and beat Patrick Mahomes again and Herbert, and now we got Bo Nix, so very competitive division, but I'm just real thankful for Mark Davis again give me another opportunity to come back. So nothing but elation really when I found out he's going to have the opportunity to come back.
Can you talk about some of the comparisons and contrasts between the team, when you left versus now, in terms of what do you find that's kind of like still remains here that you like, and things that are different that you like?
I like Max Crosby, and I like Colton Miller. There's very, unfortunate for me because again I had a lot of positive, memories of, my last season here, but there's very few faces. Malcolm Kuntz and Max, and really offensively, you're just talking about Colton Miller as the lone player that's remaining. So a lot of new faces. There's a lot of familiar faces in the building in terms of the training room and the equipment staff and the strength staff. And that made the transition much easier for me. Had a real close relationship with those departments. So, but as far as the players, really, it's totally different. There's really very, very little carryover.
You spoke about the competition of the quarterbacks in the AFC West. Obviously, Geno, has had experience. He's a seasoned veteran. How do you see his skill set in helping the Raiders climb up this division with the quarterbacks that you previously mentioned?
Well, again, he's a veteran player. He's seen a lot. He's experienced a lot as a player, and I think he's learned a lot because of those experiences. So I mentioned early on, he's competitive, he's intelligent, and he's accurate, and we'll work from those first three things to start with. And then all the experience that he's gained through his years as playing as a rookie, and then getting to back up two of the best players in pro football history to me, and Phillip Rivers and Russ Wilson. So he's a grizzled veteran, I guess, and he's learned a lot, and he's still got a chance to be better because his body hasn't taken a lot of hits over the years. He sat for a long time and didn't play. So I think health-wise, he's in a great place, and mindset-wise, he's in a great place as well.
Greg, talk about Cam Miller, if you would, please. Obviously, a lot of work to go into becoming what he can be, but man, he's got some of those things you can't teach.
Yeah, for sure. Coming from a winning program, there's something to be said about kids that come from winning programs, no matter what level it is, 1AA, 1A, NAIA. He's won, so he's proven that he can get behind the center and move a football team. Now the game's changed. There's a lot of guys that win in college, and they don't have that type of success in the NFL, but he's a quick study. I think he's got some guys in the room. Again, we mentioned both Aiden and Geno being very intelligent players, and he's an intelligent player as well. He's battling with Carter Bradley, who's the son of a coach. So he's surrounded by three good mentors in my mind. They're going to help him through this process, but they did a great job with him coaching, at the Division II level. And again, I don't think the stage will be too big for him.
We hear a lot about Tom Brady's influence in the front office. Do you feel that on the field as well?
Yeah, he when I first got hired, I had a chance to visit with him by phone, and we visited about the current quarterbacks and then the draftable quarterbacks, and then it kind of semi went quiet, but we still communicate via the telephone. He wants to know what's going on in a real positive way. He showed up this week, for the first time since he came through right before the draft, and he's watching the practices and the OTAs right now. But he's been a tremendous resource, not only for me, but I think for the quarterbacks as well. They all have him on their phone, on their contact list, and he's very open to answering questions or helping in any way he can with that position. So I think we're certainly fortunate. I am as a coach, as a quarterback coach, but I know the players feel the same way, that they've got that resource in a player like Tom Brady. So fortunate.
I'm sorry if you already been asked this before I walked over here, but what would you say is the driving factor behind the one that you come back to the Raiders?
For me?
For you, what was the?
I love the organization. I grew up loving the organization. To me, and again, I'm aging myself here, but you grow up as a kid, and there was very few organizations that were like the Raiders, and what Al Davis, built here, built in Oakland, and built with the organization. I just think, and I've worked at fortunate or unfortunate, I've worked for a lot of organizations, but there's none that's been as special as the Raiders organization in terms of the history and and everything they brought to pro football, and everything that Al Davis brought to football, and now certainly seeing the growth that Mark has now taken this team and by bringing it to Las Vegas. So it's one of the most iconic franchises in all of sports, not just pro football. And that's what I think, to me, it's like, to talk to Danny, it's one of the coolest franchises in all of professional sports, and feel fortunate, to have an opportunity to come back.
Greg, Max Crosby, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the NFL. But you can't have every player with his personality. So when you have a Geno that's going to get in here early, going to stay here late, like Max, watch his film, smart, he doesn't have to be a screamer and a cusser. He has to be, it's a different position. But they have the same mindset, maybe a different way of going about it. Would you talk about how important it is that you got that in your quarterback?
Well, there's no question when you look again at the history of the position and the cerebral players, at that position. When you look at the Tom Bradys and the Peyton Mannings and the Drew Brees and players that we mentioned, Russell Wilson or Phillip Rivers, there's really a cerebral part of playing the position. It's not an emotional position. There's emotional times that come about, but they have to really that singular mindset focus at the quarterback position, and taking some of the emotion out of it so that you can think clearly and play clearly. I think it's important. And again, history would suggest it is. Those guys that have that cerebral mindset, not mean they're not competitive or they're not firing competitive, but they understand that it's a one play at a time proposition here, and I've got to be focused and clear, on every play. So we call it quarterback character. There's football character and there's quarterback character, and I think those are two different things. And so that's what you're looking for, those guys that possess those traits that can, again, we talked about Pete Carroll, but the ability to relate to everybody in the locker room, and that's what you got to have as a quarterback. You can't just be to one certain group or, whether it be, again, age, race, whatever. They have to relate to everybody, and those guys are hard to find.
You are an elite quarterback coach in this league. You're one of the best. You don't get there by not knowing how to manage people. So I have a great question that I've always wanted to know about you. You know what guys and at what times to jump in their face, and you know at what times to back off and let a guy work himself through a problem. Obviously, you had to learn that. But what is that magic sauce that you have?
Well, I've had tremendous mentors. I've said that. I really believe, and again, Pete Carroll being one of them, although he's not most people would look at Pete as a defensive guy, but he is, I think the head coaches that can, again, they have to be able to relate to the quarterback. I don't care if you're offensive or defensive coach, you have to be able to relate to the quarterback. And to me, I feel like I've had 3 Super Bowl winning coaches my last 9 years of working. I've had Sean McVay, I've had John Gruden, I've had Pete Carroll, all Super Bowl winning coaches.
Great coaches.
Yeah, great coaches. And really, you look at Sean and you look at John, those are, John's my biggest mentor. And I felt like he just has a way, again, of communicating with those guys. And he helped me a lot along the way. Joe Tiller at Purdue University was a guy that really showed me kind of the way to help me as a mentor in coaching quarterbacks at Purdue on when to push the right buttons and how to push the right buttons.
Purdue. Yeah, I should remember that as a Spartan.
Yeah,
I should remember that. I should remember that. You made me miserable. I want to go back to Cam for one quick second. I'm not pretending that he isn't where he is. Okay, so I'm not generating or making a controversy. There isn't. But he's got a lot of intangibles. Would you talk about his intangibles? Like you watch film, and from the ankles up, he looks like an NFL quarterback. I know you're good. You're going to work with him on feet and everything else. You watch sometimes last second, he has an ability to look off guys. You normally don't see it at that level. Am I misreading the film?
No. Obviously a talented player in a lot of different respects, but I think going back to the intangibles, I think that was one of the biggest things that John Spytek and Pete Carroll and really even Tom, in terms of evaluating that position, the intangibles came first. You can't ascend to the highest level in all of sports unless you have those intangibles. It just doesn't happen. If you talk to Tom Brady and Peyton and Drew and the greatest Joe Montana, the greatest players to play that position, all their coaches would speak about their intangibles. And so it starts there, and I think that's what those guys did a great job in the initial evaluation. Let's not just get let's look at the production and just stare at the production and evaluate it based on that. Let's start with the intangibles first and then see if it matches the production. And he's certainly had a great career in college, and intangibles are a big part of it.
Last question for me is about Geno. You don't want a running quarterback who takes off too quick. Patrick Mahomes, that's what makes him so deadly. He will stay into the last second. Geno has really become that kind of guy. I don't rely on my legs, but I'm more than willing to use them. To me, I think that is something about his game that does not get enough attention. The fact he can run, but he no longer looks for it. He thinks like a pocket quarterback who, when that switch goes, then can run. Would you discuss that, please?
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking for. He's sneaky athletic.
Yeah.
Again, you wouldn't think of him as a RPO or a running quarterback, but he's athletic enough that when he does, he's a real weapon. And so, as much as we love him as a drop back guy, we need him to get 2 or 3 first downs with his feet a game, and he's willing to do that. You got to be willing to do that too as a quarterback, and he's willing to do that, and he's a better athlete again than most people give him credit for.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.
Hey, Hano, good to